Hey, this is part 23 on the Writing on Trump's Wall series, where I read the different post-it notes that I recorded on the wall of the Union Square subway station. This was a few days after Donald J. Trump won his first term as President of the United States of America back in November of 2016. So I read this keeping in mind that people literally mean things figuratively, so I literally read what's there, then I give my figurative opinion on what they probably meant and ask, would they still think this? What led them to write this then? Has it changed now that, especially that we're coming up to the second election where Donald Trump is going to win his second term as President of the United States of America? So I normally open this up with current affairs. Right now, there's a lot of things going on in the world. As I'm recording this, I'm actually watching the countdown on a separate screen here of the actual first launch of from the United States of America, of astronauts from the Kennedy Space Center. Kennedy Space Center? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. It's a Dragon launch with the SpaceX thing. It's like 14 minutes, 20 seconds left to go. And there's other things. There's a lot of other things going on. The pandemic. There's a lot of other things going on with like riots and things like that, and just different things in the United States of America. I'm not going to touch on that too much in this one. I'm just going to read you something from a friend that addresses some of the issues with the race situations that are going on in the United States of America. And it's on the screen right now. Okay, so I've been seeing stuff like this, where people try to connect the stories as part of a narrative about racism against blacks. And it's extremely irresponsible and misleading. These stories are not similar, and neither are about race. The cops straight up murdered that guy, as cops do to a lot of people. And no, they aren't more likely to kill black men once engaged. Contrary to the media's sensational race war narrative, in fact, they're statistically more likely to kill a white man than a black one. You don't hear of protests, the media's word for all leftist crime and terrorism, for Duncan Lemp or Daniel Shaver or Tony Timpa or Kelly Thomas because they're not the right color for the narrative. The guy in the park now, this is something, the thing in New York with a dog and some white lady and things like that. No, white woman. I don't say lady because I don't know. Is she lady-like behavior? I don't know. Okay, the guy in the park had set out to create a problem with that woman, and she had told him to leave her alone multiple times. He tried to prove his point by calling the dog over, and when that didn't work, he tried using dog treats that he brought just for that purpose. He didn't have a dog. She finally threatened to call the cops if he didn't leave her alone, and the Twitter mob called it a death threat in their typical sober fashion. They went after her employer and she lost her job and her dog, all because some piece of isht decided to make an example of her that day. But here's a story that won't be linked with any of this. Justine Diamond, Justine Demond, a white woman, called the cops to report an assault and was murdered by a black cop from the same police department as the guy who just murdered George Floyd. And then you got the picture there. There's something that I've seen. This leads to it's that white lady with her dog, the white woman with the dog, white female with the dog, and then the policeman with his knee on George Floyd's neck. And I understand why people try to make these connections. I don't actually see the connections themselves, and that's part of the frustration. That's part of why I record things like this. It's part of why I'm doing this series, is to try and get more actual understanding, to see what do people figuratively mean. Because does someone literally mean that lady in the park with her dog, that I keep saying lady, this is what I call people that age, is actually leading somehow to the, how is that related? Then they post these different things that are unrelated. They show this photograph, oh, this is that guy, but it turns out to not be that guy. Is anyone actually going to find out? Or do we see that picture of just him in a red hat and like, oh, that's him, it must be him. People talk about, oh, this woman, this female, she's a Trump supporter, or she's this and this. Then it turns out she's a liberal. So this other news thing coming out, oh, she's a liberal, and that's important. And then they're using that to excoriate, saying like, oh, white people, we need to do more. And it's like, what is behind all this? Why are you doing this to yourself? What is the point of this? Where is the connection? Where is the guilt? Where is the responsibility? Where are you actually holding some kind of effect in this? Or do you want to feel that you have this power that you don't necessarily have in your regular life, but if you can somehow be this hero to solve this global issue, then all of a sudden you're something more. And to that end, as it's now getting down to under 10 minutes, to the launch. I'm going to pause right now the recording, and then I'm going to come back and read the post-its. But some of that, I think, is where this comes from. People feel frustrated in their actual day-to-day lives, and they feel powerless compared to all the things that are going on in the world. But then there's people being fired into space on rockets right now. Like, that stuff's going on. That's some amazing stuff going on. Yet somebody is still like, this lady in the park is responsible for racism. That's like keeping an entire race of people down and this and this and that and that. And then by me going out and tweeting this out, all of a sudden I'm going to change the world and do this. Because we can't all be on the space shuttle. Maybe that makes you feel like you're a hero in your own story and you're somehow matching up to this. But regardless, I am not on this space shuttle. We can watch this. We can participate in this. There's over 2.5 million people live streaming, watching this. And I'm thinking like this. These are the things that I think are more interesting and more worth attention than what's going on with this. And I'm not saying these other things are not getting attention. They're getting attention, but then what level of attention should these things actually demand and get out of you in your personal life and greater society? So I'll be back after the launch. Hopefully it's a go. The weather seems better. And talk to you in a bit. So that was it. Successful launch. And well, just amazing. For me, it's still the most amazing part for me. One of the most amazing parts of the entirely amazing thing is just the fact that the rocket itself, the first stage rocket, can land on a barge in the middle of the ocean and then can be reused. It just cuts down the costs and things. And then anyway, so the first post-it that we're going to read here is Merrick Garland for SCOTUS. That's Supreme Court of the United States of America. And Merrick Garland was a nominee that Barack Obama had put up. He had nominated him for Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States of America back in 2016. But the Senate never actually voted for his nomination, so he actually didn't actually get in. And since then, Donald J. Trump won, and then he appointed Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. So there is an issue with the United States of America that could be involved with actually changing the Supreme Court of the United States of America, because the Supreme Court justices, although they do uphold the law, the Constitution, and they follow the rule of the law, they do have their own different ways. Some of the people are traditionalists and they want to go word for word, and some people say it's more of a living document and they adjust it, and their actual politics actually does get involved in some of the cases, and what they say about it has a lot of sway. But just watching this launch at the end, they're talking about Donald Trump was there and the things that he's done, Space Force, and all these things. There's a political aspect to this. You know, it's like different people invest different things in different things, and whether it's a private venture like this, a mostly private venture, you still need to work with different governments and things like that in order to actually get the location to launch it, be able to have like, okay, if we're going to bail on this plane, we're going to have a point where our ship is going to have some issues and we're going to like abort. We have to be able to land in a certain area that's peaceful and friendly, and like land in like an area where you're at war with this country, and then you land there and then they just kidnap your astronauts and steal your technology and all these things. So the technology sharing, they're just better things. If the world was actually under a more globalized and peaceful civilization, I think we could have better things happening. And you start with the United States of America, because I think United States of America still is a world leader. So you look at the things. What are the things that Donald Trump has done that are considered so negative? If you consider him to be a failure, what did he fail at doing? What has he said he was going to do? The guy from NASA here said that one of the things he did early on was talk about how, as an American president, he's going to put space travel, space flight, as a primary thing, as saying, I'm going to get to a situation where Americans are going to be sending American astronauts into space from American soil. That's what he said. That's been done. He's been there watching live. But a lot of people will still come out and say, oh, he didn't really do anything, and there's nothing he actually did. Now with Barack Obama, what are the things that you consider Barack Obama was successful in doing because of XYZ? Was he successful about combating racism in the country? Do you think the country is less racist now? Or do you somehow think that despite all the great things Barack Obama did for his 8 years, somehow the country is so racist, or Donald Trump is so evil that he turned all that down, and now that you had this, what looks like an apparent killing of George Floyd by a Minnesota by either one ex-Minnesota policeman or the group of them, negligent manslaughter. They've all been, I think, at least the primary one has been accused. The other three might also get accused for just being like in secondary or third or tertiary or just watching and enabling it. But are you saying that's proof? That's evidence. So what he did was this undone. What Obama did was undone. What has he done actually politically wise? What did Obama say he was going to do as a politician and the achievements? Then you look at what did Trump say he was going to do as a politician and the achievements. And then you can compare that and kind of see where you go from there. Okay, into the next post-it. I believe in a promised land. Okay, so I don't really do this outside, but this kind of works. This goes back to the Space Force thing again. Donald Trump talked about, it was also mentioned in this thing, the NASA guy who was being interviewed after the SpaceX broadcast I just watched. He was saying by 2024, he wants Americans back on the moon. Now, I have said, and I still think he's going to win his second term. So by 2024, he's going to be coming towards the end. Just like right now, towards the end of his first term, he has this first launch. Is it going to be now a repeat? Am I going to be over here recording another video talking about, I don't know, what will I go back to New York and record another, is it going to be another wall somewhere after he wins this time, and I'm going to be recording this and looking back 4 years after, and it's going to be right after another launch of the people landing on the moon? I don't know. 19 hours from now, or about 18 hours, 17 hours from now, the people are actually going to land and dock with the International Space Station. Then they'll be back in hundreds of days. But it's just so amazing stuff. What is the promised land? I have a separate video about this with the United States of America, talking about the American dream versus the American reality. I don't think this whole idea of pushing dreams as something for people to live off of or aim for to be a positive thing. It's better to have the realities. It's better to actually wake up, not be woke in that nature of the woke people who are deciding to burn private people's property because a public agent, a public enforcement agent, crossed the bounds and killed another private person. Like, this is not how you solve those situations. They think that's woke, and that's not the woke I'm talking about. I'm talking about wake up from these dreams, wake up from these nightmares, wake up to the reality and see what can be done in actual reality. What can actually be done? Part of this Trump train to Magaland thing. What is that Magaland? It's something figurative, but it's still an actual thing. When people hear this term, for some people they think of something really negative. For some people, they think of something really positive. But we should be able to identify what the actual thing is, and then we can weigh and see, is this be there? Some people might say, like, I want this access to this. I want to be able to actually leave, or I want no one to be able to come here. So there's other things, but there's certain parameters that I think we can agree on, and just that is part of why I'm doing this series, to try and understand what are people talking about this. So I'm wondering with this one. I believe in a promised land. Was he meaning it in a religious sense? Which religion, if so? Because I think most religions have this idea of the promised land, or like, let my people go to the promised land type of thing, which did not begin in the Judaic history. I mean, in the whole Judeo-Christian history thing, then you get the Islamic thing with the whole Abrahamic religions. This isn't something that started with them. This has been something that human beings have developed and created in their myths, in their religions. So this is something we still have in a different sense. So I'd be interested in wondering, when this person posted this, were they a supporter of Trump? Do they think Trump has enabled that promised land to exist? Or do they believe that it was a promised land, that Obama had a different promise, or they thought, like, despite Trump coming in, there's still promised land is going to be there? I wonder where they would stand on this situation right now. So I'm going to cut it off here. And as I mentioned, there's other things going on in the United States of America right now. Right now with the protests and the riots and the things right now in a rather contentious issue. I'm waiting for more information to come in, and a lot has been happening and unfolding, and I'll talk about that in separate videos. But as for the channel content itself, I've actually set it up so there's videos every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday for now until at least August when I post this. I'm going to try to keep ahead of time on those that are not time sensitive. And then when I can, I'll be keeping up with this series, Trump Train to Magaland, where I'm reading the writing on Trump's wall, where I'm talking about more current affairs. And I'll also be talking about that in separate videos that I'll be doing between those. But you have at least those 3 videos if you come back and watch this channel like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I appreciate you taking your time to actually come listen to this. Let me know what you think about that launch. Were you one of the millions of people watching the live launch? Said there's almost 10 million people watching across different social media platforms, and then that's not even counting, I think, the broadcasts and all these other things. Amazing time to be alive, despite all the horrible things that are going on. The world, if the world was anywhere close to as horrible as you think it is, we wouldn't be able to do the amazing things that we often forget are also going on. So that's it. Goodbye.